Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fan Interference with Wichita Wingnuts manager Pete Rose Jr. Fan Interference is a weekly program where you, the fans, get to ask your questions of the Wichita manager related to the Wingnuts, baseball or sports in general, or just seek Pete's wisdom about life events that are going on out there. In this week's episode, Pete gives us his Super Bowl predictions, as well as telling us what he believes some of the prop bets will work out. He discusses a little baseball with us, and Pete helps a guy who might have just gone a little bit too far in how he told his girlfriend what he felt about her. So let's join Fan Interference. So let's welcome back manager Pete Rose Jr. Pete, I know you were talking about being in Wichita here in January, so did we have any team updates you'd like to provide?
No, you know what? I have not been here soon just to kind of work on, plans and starting getting stuff together for the 2017 season. But nothing to update as far as player moves or player signings, any of that stuff. Just talking to guys from last year that, a bunch of guys are anxious to get back and, try to give it another go. But, whenever we start signing guys or making some moves and everything, I'm sure, you'll be first to know, just so you can let everybody know. But as far as anything going on right now, we've been kind of quiet, and that's actually a good thing.
Well, there were a lot of people who asked about what your Super Bowl prediction is, so let's hear what you're thinking is going to happen in the game.
My son likes the Falcons, but I just really find it hard to go against Tom Brady, and obviously I'm an AFC guy, being a Bengal fan. I don't know how you could go against him. I mean, the guy is just he's a freak of nature. He's a leader. He's just so good at his craft, and when you listen to him talk, I don't know if you listen to teammates, and that takes me back to when I played and when I was a player, and I can't go against Tom Brady. I mean, that's being a low round pick, and now he's in a category as far as after if he wins on Sunday, how many Super Bowls? I think that's 5. Yeah. The most of anybody. And don't get me wrong, Matt Ryan's had a heck of a year, with the Falcons, and they have a former Bengal and Mo Sanu, who's a great receiver to Jones. But I got to go with Tom Brady, man. I just think if it was anybody but him, I think maybe you could take the Falcons. But you got the best coach that probably ever coached in the NFL, maybe in any sport, and then you got obviously the best quarterback to ever play the game. It's kind of hard to beat those guys.
Well, before we get into fan questions, I thought it'd be kind of fun. They always have those unusual sports Super Bowl betting things out there. So I thought we could talk about a few of those just to kind of give fans your take on that. So the over-under on the game, 57.5 points. What do you think about that?
Everybody's been talking about a high-scoring game. So usually when that happens, it's a low-scoring game. So I'll take the under.
So So the next thing is you're not believing the record for the most points in the Super Bowl will be broken, 75 right now.
No, I don't think so. I think, when you're talking about Bill Belichick, who's a defensive mastermind, I think he's going to, if you go back to the Pittsburgh game, that's a high-powered offense, and he'll find a way to take either Jones or Freeman or somebody out of it. So I don't think, like I said, I'm going to take the under. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be a really good game, but I definitely don't think the points will be broken either.
What do you think will be the first score of the game?
I'm going to say it's going to be a Tom Brady touchdown to we'll go to the Hogan guy. What a receiver he is.
Okay. One of the more interesting questions: what color hoodie will Bill Belichick wear? A blue, a gray, a red, or no hoodie at all?
It's in Houston, so I'm going to go with the cutoff sweatshirt. I'm going to say no hoodie, just because I think the weather's going to be nice, and I think he's been wearing just the regular sweatshirts with the crew neck sweatshirts with no hoodie. So I'm going to go crew neck sweatshirt. I'll say he'll go blue. Let's just go with that.
Do you think the national anthem will be longer than 1 minute and 58 seconds?
That's a good question. I don't even know how long it takes to sing in the national anthem, but we'll go over on that one. Why not?
Okay. An interesting question, because I don't know very much about Luke Bryan, but I guess he's singing the national anthem, and so there's a bet on whether he wears shorts or pants.
I don't know who Luke Bryan is.
Country guy that I know of. That's about as much I can tell you.
huge music guy. One of my hobbies is I like to spin records, but I'm a house music kind of guy. I'm electro kind of, that type of stuff. I'm a Claude Von Stroke kind of guy, who's a really good DJ. So I don't know who Luke Bryan is, but I'll say pants because I always wear shorts.
And our last question, and kind of a goofy one, is what color liquid will be poured over the winning coach?
I'll say green. I you just go with the patented green Gatorade, and we'll go. It's either got to be green or orange, so I'll go green.
All right, the standard Gatorade you're going with.
Yeah, standard Gatorade.
Awesome. Well, let's go into our fan questions. First of all, Jared from Hutchinson would like to know: are any Wingnuts players in the World Baseball Classic this year?
No, not that I know of. That's a really good question. There was one kid in our league, actually, who ended up playing for Team Israel in the qualifier. What a solid baseball player. You talk about a kid that you look at him and you think nothing of him, and he's just an absolute baseball player. He played for me with the White Sox and extended, and then obviously had a tremendous year last year in Joplin. He may be the only guy that I know of that's going to play in the Classic. I got a couple horses that I know can help, but when you're talking about Team USA, that's the best of the best. So I'm going to say my guys will probably sit this one out.
Darren from Topeka would like to know what are your thoughts about some of the new managers in the league this season, like in Sioux Falls, I think is what he meant, in Kansas City.
Joe Calpietro, who's in Kansas City, he was actually, when I played in, it was the Northeast League, or the old Northern League, when I played in New Jersey. He was actually over there with Allentown. So a super nice guy. I've had a great relationship with Joe. Since I've known him, since I played against him, he was a manager, obviously. I don't know who's in Sioux Falls Sioux Falls, and
Mike Myers took over, who was with Laredo last season and became the manager up in Sioux Falls. I don't know if you know him personally.
No, what did he do for Laredo?
He was their pitching coach a couple years ago, and I think he became like the overall bench coach for.
Oh, okay. I think I may have met him. Obviously, this year just from playing against him so much, and I think coming from Laredo, I think he'll do an outstanding job. Let's not. They do things really well, and you know what? That's obviously starts from Pete at the top, and his coaches. They've always won, so I think he's going to take that tradition and that style kind of to Sioux Falls. So I think he'll do an outstanding job there.
Carl would like to know. He says, Skipper, I have to ask: do you think that the number of ejections you received last season was partly because you were trying to establish a reputation as a guy who doesn't take crap from umpires? Or can we expect the same kind of fire this year?
I'm not going to change, but it's not about taking crap from umpires. It's about not letting my guys take crap from umpires. And if my guys think they're right, then you know what, I'm on their side. And you know what, like we talked before, I don't like it. Because I think if I get ejected, don't get me wrong. My club, Slim Jimmy Foltz and Paulie and Luke from last year. But I don't like to get ejected, but I think you got to stick up for your guys. And obviously it was 9 times, probably more than that. It probably could have been, but I'm not a guy that goes out and looks to get kicked out because, like we talked about, I understand everybody makes mistakes, and I'm the first one to jump on board with that, to where nobody's perfect. If I ask a question, just give me an answer, right or wrong, and you know what, if you tell me you missed it, I'm going to turn right around and walk right back in the dugout, which I did a couple times last year. And like we talked about, some of those ejections last year weren't my fault at all. It just kind of was presented to me, and you got to kind of do what you got to do, what you got to do sometimes. So if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We'll see what happens. Let's put it that.
I think people kind of misunderstand too, is that one thing that I've learned from you is that your understanding is that your player on the field is more important than you in the dugout. I think a lot of times you see that. And so if you can be ejected, that's better than the guy that you need batting fourth in your lineup being ejected.
No question about it, because last year we were tied with I think St. Paul for the best record in the league, and if you look at the stats, I didn't drive any last year. I didn't make any errors, which are two positive things. I didn't throw an inning. I didn't give up a run. I didn't give up a hit. So you're exactly right. I mean, I think it's more important, for them to stay in the game, because we're trying to win the game. And you know what, like I've said a million times, is it's all about my players, and they're the one that's doing it on the field. They deserve all the credit. And like I said, if I can keep them in the game, and I got to go to the office and watch something on TV, then so be it. I'd be more than happy to do it.
Derek would like to know, he says, spring training is upon us. Are you excited, Pete? And what is your most memorable spring training moment?
Yeah, I think my most memorable spring training would be my first big league spring game. Is I was with the Reds in '97, and I went to Port Charlotte and played against the Rangers. I had a home run off Ken Hill. That's probably my most memorable spring training moment. But I mean, there's so many. Just obviously, spring training comes around. It's a different atmosphere around the Rose household, just because ever since I've been born, we've always headed south for spring training. Obviously with my dad and then me as a player. But it's kind of nice, where I'm at now, because I get to spend a couple extra months at home with the kids, and I get to see some of my son's season, his baseball season, and my daughter's spring soccer season. So, I'll start getting going here maybe in April or so, but knowing I don't have to be there until May, I'm still on vacation, and I'm still going to, enjoy every minute of it.
Herb from Wichita would like to know from you. He says, in watching your managing style last year, you seem to manage differently than the way I remember your dad managing. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, sure. I'm a different guy. Pete Rose Jr. So, of course, I think there's some different kind of personalities or similarities that we have, but my philosophy is to let them loose and let them go play and let them go do what they got to do. I mean, I think the more you stay out of the way, the better off you're going to be. But the game's different than when my dad managed. Obviously, it's the same game, but players are different, and as far as on the field kind of stuff. But off the field stuff, I think we have a lot of similarities, because obviously just from being around them, I've learned a ton on how he dealt with players and how he handled players and how his clubhouse was, and all that kind of good jazz. But I just try to stay out of the way. I think you've heard me say that more than a dozen times probably, but that's really what I try to do. I don't try to put this on, put that on, take the bats out of guys' hands, let guys go out and throw strikes and get outs and make plays, and just go out and be themselves. I think that they're going to make mistakes, and I encourage them to make mistakes as long as they're aggressive. And if they do that, then the next time they're in that situation, I think they're going to be successful. So, but I mean, we got differences, we got similarities. But somebody wants to compare me to my dad, I'll take the comparisons, all day and twice on Sunday, man. He's a great baseball man and an even better father. And, I get to call him Dad, which is an amazing thing.
Awesome. Steve from Wichita asked, in listening to you talk about superstition, he wanted to know if they work.
I think some of them work. I mean, Starbucks was pretty good last year, and Sonic did okay. But, I think it's just a daily routine. I think they work, and I think if you believe that they work, they're going to work. But like I said, I didn't do anything last year. I mean, that's all the credit goes to my guys. And if you believe they work, which I do, you stick to them, and it's just kind of been a part of me ever since I started playing. So it's going to be a tough habit to break. But, yeah, they work, and we'll just keep doing them, and we'll see what happens this year.
Reed would like to know from you what you think is a good age for a boy or girl to start playing baseball.
I started when I was 4. My son started when he was 4. I don't know if that's a good age. Obviously, me and my son were different than a lot of people just because I grew up at the ballpark. My son grew up at the ballpark. But I would definitely say as long as, I just remember the big test, throwing the ball up above, the chest area, and he's either going to catch it or you're going to get hit in the face. And I think once you can protect yourself, I think the sky's the limit. But I think it's, it kind of all depends on the kid, on the individual. I think if you can protect yourself catching and not give you the patented palm down, try to ball at your face where you're going to take one in the skull, you may want to wait a year or so. But we started early, and I think my daughter, and she played softball last year, so I would say 4 or 5. That's probably a good age.
Isaac asks of you, he says, Pete, after listening to your thoughts last week, I wonder if the Hall of Fame should even use that name. It just doesn't seem like the Hall of Fame when the all-time home run leader, the all-time hit leader, and the guy that has the most Cy Young Award winners is not in the Hall of Fame.
Once again, I'm a Rose, so I'm biased. I mean, it's a great place. I've been there. I remember my first year with the Orioles when I played in Erie. We actually stopped. So it's a great museum. It's a great place. They have the most stuff of any player, which is my dad is actually in the Hall of Fame. So that's kind of cool. But it is what it is, man. It's no sour grapes. I know he's a Hall of Famer. Probably 99.9% in the world knows that he's a Hall of Famer. And if you played the game, not only as a professional, but in college, high school, little league, and you know anything about the game, he's a Hall of Famer. So, it's a great place to go, and I would recommend any baseball fan go and just check it out, just because all the memorabilia and all the memories and everything that's in there. But I'm biased, man. I'm a Rose, so I'm I know he's a Hall of Famer, so whatever.
Well, I've always looked at a situation like that and thought, okay, well, somebody else can determine what your status is or whatever, but nobody can take away the fact that when you look at the all-time hit leader, there's one name that appears up there. So,
you're right. You're right, and like we talked about, I think it was last week or whatever, is he's proud of that. But his biggest accomplishment and the thing he talks about the most is he's played the most winning games of any athlete, because obviously baseball so long at 162 games, and he played for 24 plus years. He's the biggest winner, and I think that's an amazing feat. I mean, you talk about a guy that's been in the most winning games as far as being on the winning side. It's Pete Rose, and a lot of people don't know that unless you're a super baseball fan or a super Pete Rose fan, because a lot of people don't talk about that. But I think that's his his best accomplishment, so to speak, or the one that he likes the most is, he says that he's the biggest winner, and you know what, he is, and I think that's an unbelievable feat.
Wow, I love that. I didn't know that at all. Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you look at his games and winning games played, it's more than anybody in the history of sports. It's amazing.
Wow. So is like Jeter he's got to be like second or something, I would gather on that.
I don't know what he is, just because I don't know. Jeter played 17 seasons, I think.
I think so, yeah.
17. Well, my dad played 24, and that's that you're making, and people don't want to play for that long anymore. Just because they can set their families up on one contract, which is totally understandable, to where people would rather spend time with their families and watch their kids grow, which I'm all for that. So I just think that I don't know who's second, but I definitely know who's first, just because I know he talks about it all the time, and I think if I was him, I would do the same as well.
Absolutely. Our last question comes from Jack from Wichita. He says, okay, Pete, so I met this girl and I asked her to go out on a date with me. So she says, yes. On the date, I tell her, I fell in love with you the moment I saw you and knew you were the one. Her response is, you're creeping me out. Love at first sight is for real, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I would have went at it that way. I think I might have went at it a different way. So maybe he's in trouble. But keep at it, and just don't get creepy. You know what I mean? But it's definitely out there. But I think if you preach it right out of the gate, you may be in some. One hopefully works out for him.
Yeah, that's a story you tell your friends way later on in life. You don't say that on the first date.
After you've been married for like 20 years, exactly. That's exactly what you do.
Well, thanks for joining us this week, Pete.
You got it, man. I'll talk to you next week.
We want to thank Manager Pete Rose Jr. for joining us on Fan Interference this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Wichita Wingnuts manager, please send them to us at askpete@minorleaguesportsupport.com. That's askpete@minorleaguesportsupport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give Pete a little time to review them before we record the show. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll see you next time on Fan Interference.